Okay, good morning to all of you guys. Happy Tuesday. Today is June 28th. We're about 2 days away from our last quarter, right? We're gonna go into the third quarter already. Wow, that quickly, man, guys. Time flies. Time really flies when you're having fun, when you're selling real estate, when you're learning about real estate. So let's make the most out of it today. So today we're gonna continue with our training 4.5, not 5, but 4.5. Is continuation from last training. So pretty much last week we were discussing about contingency removals, the effect that it has to the buyer or to the seller, okay, and what can cause and the consequences they may arise when a seller or a buyer removes those contingencies. Okay, so let me start by sharing my screen with you guys and going, let's see what I have here available. Okay. Is there a fan noise? Is there a noise in the background? Is it picking it up or no?
No, not at my end.
Okay, good. Good. If it does, please let me know because the fan from my computer is going like crazy. And I hope you guys are not picking it up.
No, but your computer might overheat, so might.
All right, guys, good. All right, the contingency removal. Okay, let's see. Okay, here we are. So going back to the contingency removals, okay, keep in mind you could do as many as you guys want, okay, or you can only do one. So depending on how you're dealing with your transaction, okay, helping your buyer, again, keep in mind that you definitely want to always help your buyer to the best if you can, and to protect them at always, okay, when it comes to removing contingencies. But with that being said, you guys got to be aware that it is written on the RPA that the buyer would have to remove contingencies within the actual time frame, okay, that it is stipulated on the offer or counter offer. Okay, so per contract, we know that every contingency, okay, must be removed within 17 days after acceptance. Okay, day one starts the next day after that acceptance. So today being Tuesday, if your offer got accepted today, your first day will be tomorrow, Wednesday. Okay, and we're speaking about calendar days. Okay, Monday through Sunday. Okay, including weekends and holidays. Okay, so please keep that in mind. Okay, so day one will start the next day after acceptance, Monday through Sunday, weekends and holidays. So just because next Monday is 4th of July weekend, right? Doesn't count. Oh, guess what, folks? That day does still count as being a day to remove the contingency. Now, what would happen if your day falls on for example, on a holiday on July 4th, right? Do we still have to remove it? Yes, we have to. Okay, because again, even though it's falls on a holiday, it must be removed in writing. Okay, so regardless on which day it falls, Saturday, Sunday, holiday, weekend, weekday, the buyer must remove all contingencies as being followed and read on the RPA. So so again, you can remove them as you go, okay, one by one, or you can wait and remove all of them on number 3, except for the following, right? The loan contingency, appraisal, the contingency of the purchase for the buyer, or a condominium plan development, or HOA, or other, or make it go straight from instead of selecting 2, 3, or okay, you just go to 4. Buyer hereby removes any and all buyer's contingencies. Okay, now, so the consequences once the buyer removes those contingencies in writing, okay, the buyer is saying that they have reached the point of no return, right? They've been fully satisfied with everything that what has been said on reports, disclosures, escrow, again, termite reports, again, you name it, right? Anything like that, leases, proposals, tenant stoppals, okay? The buyer has been fully satisfied, okay, and it means that they're willing to move forward without going back. Okay, now, can a buyer still cancel after they have removed all contingencies? Yes or no? Yes? Anybody says yes? Who says no? Who says yes?
You said after all contingencies, if they can close?
Yes. So can the buyer cancel after they have removed all their contingencies?
I would say no, but there's probably one occasion that perhaps a little clause that they can get out of.
Well, Roy, your answer to that answer, no. The bar, yes, they can still cancel after they have removed the contingencies in writing. Yes, they can. Okay, but here comes the actual consequences that will arise out of this. Okay, they will lose automatically. Okay, up to 3%. If it is an owner occupied, okay, property, meaning they're gonna live in the property. Okay, single family, a multi-unit property, as a condo or townhouse, they will lose up to 3% of their earnest money deposit. Now, what if this is an investor who's not planning to live in the property? How much can they lose?
Let's say 10%.
Okay, well, there's no set percentage how much they could lose. Okay, so if the seller wants to come for any penalties, there's no set percentage on an investor. It could be 3%, 5%, 10%, whatever percentage they want to go against for any losses, right? They can choose to go from that on a investor purchase. On a owner occupied, the maximum is up to 3%. Okay, that's the most because the seller can actually charge for damages to the buyer. Okay, any questions on this? So this really it is stipulated on the liquidated damages of the RPA. Okay, and let me go to the RPA so you guys can show you guys. So when you guys actually tell your buyers, okay, to be aware of the actual consequences that might arise after cancellation, after they have removed all the contingencies in writing. Okay. Okay, and here it is. Okay, number 29, page 14, 29, liquidated damages. By initialing below, in the space below, you're agreeing to liquidated damages. If buyer fails to complete this purchase because the buyer's default, seller shall retain as liquidated damages the deposit actually paid if the property dwelling were no more than 4 units, one which the buyer intends to occupy. Then the amount retained shall be no more than 3% of the purchase price. Any excess shall be returned to buyer. Release of funds will require mutual signed release instructions from the both buyer and seller. Judicial decision or arbitration award at the time of any increased deposit. Buyer and seller shall sign a separate liquidated damages provision incorporated that increase deposit as liquidated damages card form DID. Okay, so that's why once your buyer initials here on the RPA or the purchase contract, they're agreeing to what? To liquidated damages. Okay, but of course, right, just because they're removing the contingencies or something again, now if they don't agree, if the buyer doesn't want to remove or doesn't want to give away their money or their deposit, in other words, right, the first thing they have to do, right, is gonna what? Mediation. Okay, so you cannot take it to small claims, you cannot go to court or try to sue. The first thing the parties must do, they must mediate. They must go to mediation first hand. Okay, if mediation did not solve the issue, okay, the next step is to hire an arbitration or arbitrator. Right now, who can be a national arbitrator when it comes to a case to solve this problem? Well, it could be an actual retired judge, right, or a real estate attorney who's been practicing real estate for 5 years or more. Okay, so an arbitrator could be a retired judge or a real estate attorney who's been practicing real estate for the past 5 years or more. Okay, so please keep that in mind. Now, who selects the mediator or the arbitrator? Do we as the agents, do we have to get involved? Do we have well, talk to this attorney or how talk to this judge? No, it's going to be between the parties to decide who they want to hire as a mediator or arbitrator. Okay, now, can this be solved in your office, their home? No, it needs to be in a neutral zone. Okay, and most likely these meetings will happen in the board of realtors. Okay, So this is how most likely meetings will go to. Okay. Again, I would not enforce it or police to be in our office or the other party's office. Okay. Now, do you have to be part of this, or do you have to be involved on this mediation? No. Okay. You shouldn't be part of it. Okay. Now, what if your seller or your buyer says, "Well, can you please come with me and help me with this?" Again, you go deny to go to. Okay, but you don't have to go to it. Okay. Because at the end of the day, it's going to be between the parties to argue the facts. Okay, who was at fault, who was in good faith, and who acted wrongfully at the end. Okay, so please keep that in mind. Okay, and since I have you guys on this RPA, okay, I want you guys to take note. Okay, I have been seeing a lot when it comes to your offers. Okay, if you're helping the seller in this case, okay, please take note. Okay, when it comes to the acceptance, okay, if you have a counter offer or a backup offer or anything else, please select the appropriate box. Okay, I have seen a lot of offers from you guys. Okay, I'm speaking about you guys directly. Our agents from Downey and Southgate. If you're helping a seller, okay, and you're taking the offer, and you're gonna submit a backup offer to the other buyer's agent or the other buyer, okay, please make sure to select seller's counter offer on your offer. Okay, because I have seen it on the guide flow that you guys are missing this little part here. Now, I'm gonna give you a story. What happened? Okay, one of our agents on my previous company. Okay, the other party did not select a C attached counter offer, right? And they have signed, okay, the offer as well, right? But because they didn't specify there was attached counter offer, okay, our buyer, okay, our agent went with the full acceptance of that offer. In other words, the counter offer was not valid, and the seller had to take the acceptance from the original offer, even though what the counter offer said it was contrary to the offer. Guess what? We pushed it, and my buyer's agent won on that offer acceptance because the other party neglectfully, okay, did not select this part here. So the offer was accepted at their purchase price, at their terms, and at their conditions. When the counter offer was at higher price, different terms, different conditions. Are you guys with me, guys? Yes. So please be very careful, because again, they could be another smart agent out there, right? He says, you know what? Wait a minute. You never selected this counter offer, so technically your counter offer, it doesn't necessarily, it's irrelevant to the purchase contract. So you know what? I'm gonna say that there's no such counter offer, and I'm gonna take it you accepted my offer as is. So please be very careful when you guys are doing counter offers. Always select it here, please, guys, please. Okay, because again, we don't want somebody else coming in. They say, you know what? Well, you never select this part. So, in other words, you accepted the offer at all. Okay. All right. Let's go back to our contingency removals. Okay. Now, going back to the contingency removal. Okay. Keep in mind, this is a two-part section. Okay. Last week I told you guys, when you guys see a dark border line here across here, okay, it means this is a two-part contingency. Okay. The upper part, okay, top part is for the buyer only, and the second part or the bottom part is for the seller only as well. Okay, so just because your buyer has signed here, the seller does not need to sign here at the bottom section to confirm. Okay, please. And I have seen this a lot as well. Okay, and it says here, read it, folks. Note, this section is solely for the purpose of removing seller contingencies and should only be signed by seller if they're what? Removing seller's contingencies. Okay, now let me ask you, what if the buyer, we know for a fact the buyer needs to remove contingencies, right? Automatically, they have to. So they will choose number one, right? And we know also that the seller has to remove their other contingency of the purchase for the replacement property they're buying, correct? So does that mean that they both have to sign here, or you got to use their own separate contingency removal forms? do they have to remove? Do they have to use their own separate contingency removal forms, or can they both sign on the same form? Buyer signs on top and the seller signs at the bottom. Anybody?
I would say, my guess is you would need both, like,
Ms.
because
Bailey?
you might specify which ones you're removing.
Right. So Ms. Bailey, just for your sake, okay? So keep this is again, it is a two-part, okay? Contingency removal. So if both parties have contingencies to get removed, okay, each party must use their own separate contingency removal form. So this will be one for the buyer, and then you have also one for the seller as well. If the buyer removes all of them, right, on number 4, so that's it. You're done for the buyer. They sign it, they're done. And then the seller will have to use also number 1 for the seller, right? We're skipping the top portion and go to the bottom, number 6, and then we select here, finding or closing, whichever applies, or other. And that's your second, yes, that's your part 2, right? Or the bottom part for the seller to remove their contingency and they sign, and that's it. Okay, the buyer doesn't he need to sign on top. Does that make sense to you guys? Yes? Good. Okay, so that's that. Okay. Now, going back to your demand to close escrow. Okay, now, I'm sorry, no, let's go to the notice to perform. Okay, so notice to perform. Okay, we discussed that this is when there's no performance on the buyer side, right? Because maybe they haven't actually provided or returned back any disclosures. They haven't maybe returned escrow instructions, reports, home inspection, nothing like that in that matter. Okay, and you're asking the buyer to wait. Hey, you need to perform. You got 2 more days additional from this notice to perform, or right, the seller may cancel the agreement for non-performance. Correct? If they don't perform, okay, on the second day, right, then most likely the seller may cancel. Now, what if, okay, you're asking the buyer to perform on the loan contingency? Do banks work on the weekends? Yes or no? They don't, right? Banks only work what? Monday through Friday, except weekends and holidays, correct? So if you're asking the buyer, hey, you better remove the contingency when it comes to the loan approval, and those 2 days will land on a weekend or on a holiday, you will have to give them another day more, right, until the next business day. So for example, let's say this will fall on July 4th, Independence Day, which is the Monday, a holiday, right? So then now they have until Tuesday to remove that contingency for the loan approval. Just for the loan approval. That's it. Okay. The rest, guess what? They have to get removed. There's no buts, there's no ifs. They need to get removed. Only for the loan, it applies for the next business day. Okay. And same thing goes with and maybe for anything from escrow, because escrow also only works what? Monday through Friday, except weekends and holidays. Okay. So anything related to escrow, same thing. If they haven't deposited their deposit, right? Their initial deposit, right? Same thing. You got to give them another business day until the next business day. All right. Any questions on that? All right. Now let's go back to our seller to notice to seller to perform, NSP. Okay. And the notice to seller to perform, okay, it also works both ways as well. Okay. Now, what could be the non-performance on the seller side? Okay, well, here we go, right? There could be many things why a buyer might feel that the seller needs to perform, right? And again, this would be number 1 on top. Okay. Maybe they haven't delivered disclosures, right? That could be one of them. Maybe they haven't actually provided any other reports That could be another one, right? And they are here, right? Delivery of information related to the lease or lien items, right? Or systems, right? The following fully completed statutory or supplement disclosures, TDS, NHD, SPQ, ESD, right? It's all there. Or fully completed lead disclosures, fire hardening and defensive space advisory, right? Condominium HOAs, CCNRs, right? Prelim report, it's all there, folks. Or maybe the removal or anything else, right? And then also what? Their contingency as well, right? The finding of the replacement property or the close of the replacement property, right? Which is attached to the SPRP or other, right? This could be the reasons why, right? The buyer might feel that the seller has not performed. And how many days do they have? Same thing, 2 days, right? And again, seller, if you do not take the construction actions specified above within 2 days or, right, 3 days, it cannot be less than 2 days, okay, or 3 days, or etc. Right? Right? As specified in this agreement, days after delivery of this noted, seller to perform. Buyer what? Buyer may cancel the agreement, notwithstanding the previous sentence, if the construction action is to remove of abandoned personal property. Seller shall give at least 3 days to perform. Okay. So now, to remove any trash or anything that's been abandoned to the property, right? Now you need to give them at least 3 days to perform. Okay. So when it comes to anything like debris, trash, or anything like that, or personal property, you need to give them at least 3 days to perform. Okay. So now your buyer will sign here, send it over. Okay. So this starts the day after you send over, right? Good. All right. And then of course, our last one, which is going to be the demand to close escrow. Card from DCE, right? And again, now you got to give them 3 days, right? Now, on this one, pretty much that's it, right? It's final. There's no may here, okay, I'll give you another chance. No. If you don't perform, if you don't close escrow by the time specified, after it goes beyond the original close of escrow, right? Then right automatically, either party can what? Can cancel this contract in writing, right? Right. So again, there's some more I may not. No, that's it. If you don't close after the time specified, right? That's it. We're done. I'm gonna close it. I'm gonna cancel automatically, right? Now, which form do we use to cancel the escrow? Again, knock on wood, because we don't want any cancellations, correct? We also want to open escrow and close our escrows, right? Oh, who wants cancellations? Raise your hands. Come on. Who wants cancellation? Nobody, right? Of course we don't. We want close escrows. But again, if things comes to worse and we definitely gotta what? Cancel that escrow, then we need to use card form CC, cancellation of contract. Okay. Cancellation of a contract, deposition of deposit, and cancellation of escrow. Okay. This is a form that we need to use, okay, if things just do not go either way, right? Either for the buyer or for the seller, right? So now, what are the reasons a buyer can cancel? Please put your mic or put in the chat box. What are the reasons why a buyer can cancel? I'm waiting for you guys. Open your mic. What are the reasons? What are the reasons why?
It occurs to me that one of the things that a buyer can cancel is because they find some features, undesirable features in the property.
Like what do you have? Like what, Ramon?
Like maybe some defects in the construction of the property.
Yes, that could be one of them. Correct. Now, Ramon, so you have on the call, Ramon. Can a buyer cancel because the kitchen is too small?
Because of what? Because it's too small?
Kitchen is too small, the kitchen. Or the living room is too small. Or it only has one bathroom.
No,
Or maybe the walls are painted green.
can't cancel.
Can cancel, right?
Nope.
Okay. So the only bona fide and reason, legitimate reason for the bar to cancel, okay, it must be on the reasons why, okay, on disclosures, right? Again, the 6 items that I gave you guys last week, right? What are they? Disclosures, right? Reports,
Loan appraisal,
Inspection,
inspections,
investigation,
Vegas law,
patients,
appraisals, and loans.
loan. Megan's law. Well, Megan's law will fall under your investigation, Naomi.
okay.
Okay, yeah. That's your investigation right there. And it does work, right, Brenda Bailey?
yes.
It does work.
It does work.
All right. So yeah. So Megan's law does fall under investigations. Okay. Those are the reasons why a buyer may cancel the contract. Okay. Now, another reason also a buyer may cancel, right, is for non-performance on whose side? On the seller side. Correct? Now, let's flip this around now. What are the reasons why a seller might cancel the contract or the transaction?
Repairs.
Repairs on what?
Perhaps they needed repairs on and it didn't get repaired, or tenants, they have tenants they can't move out.
Well, that'll be breach of contract, Roy.
Oh, okay.
So
What would be reasons why a seller wouldn't want to close?
you cannot cancel based on that.
Statutory disclosures, perhaps. They didn't meet them, they didn't check them.
Well, you're on the right track. The only reasons why a seller can cancel, again, for the buyer's non-performance, maybe because they didn't provide or return back to disclosures, right, on time, on timely manner, right, and maybe because the buyer did not remove their contingencies in a timely manner, right, after giving what, a notice to perform. Okay, please keep in mind, okay, you get for the buyer or seller to exercise their cancellation rights, you always got to give them the last warning. And when those warnings are what? The notice to perform to the buyer or the notice to perform to the seller. Okay. So just because the 17 days have come around and the buyer has not returned those disclosures back or removed contingencies, okay, you cannot say, well, you know what? Well, today I'm going to cancel. No. You need the seller has to give the buyer the last warning, the notice to perform. Always. So please do not panic, okay? Because I have received phone calls from you guys. Hey, Freddy, I'm getting a threat. They're going to cancel the escrow today if I don't remove contingencies. No. Again, they have to first give you the notice to perform. Now, if your buyer doesn't perform, then yes, they may cancel. Again, may cancel. Not will cancel, but may cancel. So that's to say, I would always ask you guys, well, let me ask you, has the buyer removed all contingencies? Well, no. Have you served with a notice to perform? No. So guess what? They still cannot cancel you just like that. They got to give you the notice to perform first before they cancel you guys. Okay. So now going back to the seller. The seller cannot cancel just like that. They need to give a what? A notice to perform before offering the cancellation or a demand to close escrow. Okay. Okay, so those are the reasons why a seller can cancel. Okay, now can a seller cancel because they receive a higher, greater offer on their home? No, they cannot. Okay, just because they have a higher offer with better terms and better conditions, okay, you cannot say, you know what, Mr. Buyer, later I have a better offer, I'm gonna go with a higher offer. No, you cannot do that. Okay, those are the reasons why. Now, you could keep it as a backup offer if you want to, right? But I would definitely say, okay, I will try to push hoping the buyer will default, right? For their custody. So I could find a reason why I want to cancel as a buyer, as a seller, right? So I will hope and pray to God, hopefully, God willing, right? The buyer will default and not return disclosures, as instructions, print report, or anything will fall on that category, right? So pursue a notice to perform to the buyer. And if they don't perform, hey, guess what? Then I will cancel and I will go with what? With a backup offer. Does that make sense? Okay, and that's why it's very crucial, guys, to always please always keep a time frame, okay, a clock on those days. Okay, so don't wait. Okay, always keep it in your calendar, put reminders, notifications. Okay, when the date will come around for 17 days or whatever given day it is for the buyer to remove, so automatically, hey, time's up, remove contingencies in writing. Okay, so this goes to now. Let's go ahead and continue wearing our seller's hat, right? If you're helping the seller, always do not wait. Okay, I would say once the 17th day comes around, or the days for the buyer to remove contingencies, always submit the notice to perform on that day. Always, so they always perform. I will send an email, time's up, remove contingencies, and I will submit my notice to perform. So once the 19th day comes around, if they don't perform, then we may cancel. We're good? Now, what are other reasons a seller may cancel? I already give you most of them. What is it? There's one more reason a seller may cancel.
Deposit.
Well, we already talked about that.
Yeah.
Was another reason why, and the last reason why a seller may cancel.
They didn't find a replacement property.
Exactly, Brenda. That's correct. And that's the answer I was looking for. Yes, they were not able to find a replacement property, right, to purchase, right? But then again, you need to submit car form SPRP with that counter offer to let the buyer to be aware. Hey, guess what? I'm contingent upon finding a replacement property for this house that I'm selling to you. If I cannot find it, okay, in my timely manner, or whatever time it takes me to find it, right? Guess what? I will cancel, because I won't be stranded or being homeless, because I know you want to buy the property and I cannot find a replacement. Okay, so always attach car form SPRP with your counter offers. If there's no counter offer, then submit it with your purchase contract. Okay. Now, what are the consequences if the seller or you guys, the agents, right, the seller's agent, right, do not submit the SPRP with their counter offer or the purchase contract, and you submit it 3 days after the fact? You know what? I forgot about it. What are the consequences?
They're gonna have to close, and regardless if they have another property lined up to move into.
Exactly, because again, you know what? Guess what? That was not part of the agreement, and the buyer can say, you know what? No, sorry, buddy. I never signed it. Too late. You never let me know about it from the get-go. So I'm taking it as is from the original purchase contract or the counter offer. Okay, so please be very careful. Okay, take notes. Again, I know you want to get the offer accepted or move on and open escrow, but please protect your buyers, protect your sellers always. At all means, please always be careful and take your time, guys. There's no rush, there's no pressure. Nobody's rushing you guys to take things lightly. Okay, take one step at a time. Okay, because yes, things that have happened. Okay, and same thing goes with the buyer. Okay, our buyers are also contingent upon selling their home to buy this property, right? Contingent upon purchase, and we talk about that car form COP. Okay. Okay, so now how do we put this cancel? So let's say things couldn't work out, there was no negotiating, you know, nothing happened, right? Well, who's gonna initiate the cancellation? the buyer or the seller, right? So whoever's on number 1 here, okay, right above 1, who's gonna issue the cancellation, right? Either buyer or seller, right? So we definitely gotta start here, okay? As permitted by good faith exercise of paragraphs, okay? Right here, we went to paragraph 14. Okay, why 14? Okay, well, because most likely on the regular RPA, okay, it will give you everything why the buyer want to for cancellation periods. Okay, and let me go back to the RPA to show you guys paragraph 14. Okay, when it talks about cancellation rights or contingency removals, right, or inspections and so on. Okay, paragraph 14 of the RPA. Now it might be different for any other contract out there, so please keep that in mind. But 14 is the one for the RPA. And here we are, right? Ruben, can you see that, Ruben? Time periods, removal of contingencies, cancellation rights. The following time periods may only be what? Extended, altered, modified, or changed by mutual written agreements. Any removal of contingencies or cancellations under this paragraph by either buyer or seller must be exercised in good faith in writing. Card form CR or CC. So there you go. Paragraph 14, right? So that's why we relate everything back to what? This paragraph 14 and 18 in it as well. Okay, let's go back to our cancellation rights right here. So that's why we put paragraph 14, right? Now, if that wasn't if that was not the issue, right? Why a buyer wants to cancel, right? Then it could be another reason, right? It could be seller has failed to remove the applicable contingency or take the applicable constructive action after being given what? A notice to perform to the seller, right? Card form NSP, right? Right here. This is why they want to cancel. For the seller not performance, right? Or things are flipped around. Seller, they're going to initiate the cancellation and buyer has failed, right? Buyer has failed to want to remove applicable contingencies or to take applicable constructive action after giving the notice to perform to the buyer, right? But let's go back to the buyer. All right. Or the other party has failed to close escrow after being given a notice to demand to close escrow, right? Here it is. Or other. Or it could be a proposed mutual cancellation, right? It could be, right, the buyer or seller, right, signing below purposes of mutual cancellation of agreement. The cancellation effective if agreement is reached by both parties signing below, and right. So this is about a mutual agreement. Okay. So now, whoever initials the cancellation on top right here needs to sign right here. Please keep that in mind. Okay. So whatever box you have here first, that party will sign right here. Okay. You cannot select both. The system will not allow you to select both. It's either buyer or seller. And they sign here. Now, the disposition of deposit and cancellation of escrow, right? Okay. Purpose of paragraph 2. This paragraph is used for instruct escrow holder to cancel the escrow for the purchase or sale of the other designated transaction of the property and what to do with the deposit. Any cancellation of contract pursuant to paragraph 1A remains in effect even if both parties to this agreement do not sign below. Okay. So for the escrow holder to release the deposit or the EMD, right? Both signatures must be in right here for the actual for the escrow to release that deposit. Okay. Now, when you're doing a cancellation, okay, if you don't have an escrow, let's say you never open escrow, then of course you don't feel nothing here. But if you did open escrow, right, of course you're gonna put the escrow number. So ABC 1 2 3 with escrow holder ABC escrow, right? And then you guys gotta be very careful here, folks, which box you got to select. Okay, please be very careful. Okay, number 1, it says seller authorizes release of buyer deposit to buyer lets buyer's fees and costs already incurred and agreed in contract to be paid through escrow, including any escrow cancellation fees. Okay, so we want to always select number one if we want the buyer to release the buyer's deposit. Okay, because per contract, okay, and I don't know if you guys know this, per contract, that deposit belongs to who? To the seller, right? You guys know this, right? Naomi, Ramon, per contract, once that deposit the earnest money deposit has been deposited into escrow, the money belongs to the seller. Okay, keep that in mind. But for this cancellation, we're asking Mr. Seller, Miss Seller, please give us back the money that we put into escrow that was once yours, we want it back. That's why seller will authorize the release of buyer deposit. Okay, now what would happen if you select number two? Well, you're saying buyer authorizes the release of the buyer deposit to seller, less seller's fees and costs already incurred and agreed and contract to be paid by the escrow, right? So again, we never want to select number two unless the buyer is very generous, right? And wants to give their deposit to who? To the seller. Please be very, very careful. Okay. Or three, buyers authorizes the release of what? Of maybe X dollar amount from the buyer deposit to the seller, right? And the balance shall be returned to the buyer. Each party to be paid, right, for their own unpaid construction fees and costs already incurred and agreed in the contract to be paid through escrow, right? So again, maybe okay, you know what? Let's go. I'll give you half of my deposit. Take it, right? There it is, or on some portion. Or what if there was never a deposit, right? That was done through escrow, right? Or actually an actual EMD deposited into escrow. Would then number four, there's no deposit in escrow. Each party to pay their own unpaid construction fees and costs, if any, already incurred and agreed in the contract to be paid through escrow, right? So again, if there's a deposit right here, yes, and there's been a lot of occasions or cases, right, when a buyer does never take the money into escrow. Okay, now you might ask, well, Freddy, what are the fees the escrow can charge for cancellations? What are the fees? Well, that would depend with the escrow holder. Okay, sometimes those fees can run up to $200, $300, depending how much they invested or they had to work on their paperwork, right? Paperwork for this, for escrow instructions or anything else, messenger fees, FedEx fees, whatever fees they had to charge, right? So guess what? Someone has to pay for those fees, and most likely it's going to be up to the buyer or the seller. So please keep that in mind. Okay, so in this case, we'll select number one, go to the bottom, right? And then, so right here, now the buyer has signed right here, and the seller will also have to sign here as well for that deposit to get released. Now, what would happen if the seller refuses to sign the cancellation of a contract and says, you know what, I'm not going to sign it, I want the money? What happens next?
Mediation.
Mediation, exactly. Definitely the parties will have to go to mediation to solve this matter, right? And if mediation doesn't solve it, what's next? Arbitration, right? Now, so pretty much everything will stop during arbitration. Whatever the arbitrator awards to either party, that stands. That's it. You cannot go to court. You cannot go to small claims. You cannot sue the other party for because you didn't like what the arbitrator said against you, right, or in favor. Okay, so whatever happens in the arbitration, right, that's it. That's the final word, and that's final. That's it. Okay, So if the arbitrator awarded, okay, the deposit to the seller because the buyer acted in bad faith, that's it. You cannot, the buyer cannot take the seller to court. Hey, you know what? I'm gonna sue you because I want my money back. Or I'm gonna sue you because I'm gonna take small claims. No, that's it. That's final. Okay, and that's why on the RPA, they put their initials to say, you know what, we rather mediate or arbitrate instead of going to court, because we know that court fees are more expensive. We know that court fees will take more time. And what happens when you go to court? Guess what? This transaction cannot move forward and the seller cannot sell the property. Right? We know that, right? You need to cancel this escrow prior to open another escrow and closing that new escrow. Because if you close this escrow, if you close another escrow when you're still in mediation or any litigations, guess what? The seller will be in big trouble, right? And most likely a buyer will put a lis pendens on the property so it doesn't sell as well. What is a lis pendens, Naomi?
What was the question?
What is a lis pendens?
I don't know.
Is it a cloud on title or
Yeah.
a cloud on property?
On the property
Pending-
they cannot sell, yes.
Lis pendens, pending lawsuit.
Pending lawsuit, exactly. Okay, so yes. So pretty much you cannot sell the property. Okay, so you again, be very careful. Again, if you wanna jeopardize or lose a great offer that's on the table, just go with it, get the buyers back the money, take a hike, go on with your business, and I'll open an escrow with a new better offer.
Or negotiate the deposit.
Or negotiate, yeah. And I think you had an issue with that, Eddie, right?
Yes, sir.
Would you mind sharing that with that, Eddie?
So we were already in contract on the uplink, and the buyer for my seller's property, after removing all contingencies, decided to just cancel. Just try to claim that it was COVID, but they didn't sign the that COVID addendum at the time. They didn't submit it with that offer, but either way, it was a lie. They just try to use it to get out of it. And my clients were ready to move on to the next property. So instead of getting into, mediation or arbitration or anything like that, we negotiate on half the deposit.
So they got half of the deposit and a better offer, right? I think it was.
Correct. Yes.
Good job, brother. Yeah, so you gotta be smart, guys. Again, sometimes sellers might get greedy, but it's your job to make them understand the consequences, right? For holding this property hostage, in other words, right? And not going with it, because you might have another offer that is there, right? Who wants to buy it for a higher price with better terms and better conditions. So you gotta be smart how you play your cards, okay? So any questions on the cancellation of contract? We're good? All right. All right. Let's go now to car farm R&R. Request for repairs. Now, the request for repairs, okay, it's a request for the buyer to the seller. Here it is. Okay, so the request for repairs is used for negotiating, to ask for repairs, of course, to lower the price, and to give a credit back to the buyer. Okay, those are the only three things that a request for repairs is used for. Again, for repairs, right, to lower the price, or to credit back to the buyer. That's it, nothing else. Okay. Now, let me go back to the offer, and let me show you guys something about the offer that it says about request repairs. Okay, here it is. Okay, let's see where's my going. Okay, there you go. Yeah, here it is. Okay. Paragraph 14B3, right? So it says buyer shall, right? But at the end of the time specified in paragraph 3L or otherwise in writing, right? Deliver to seller a removal what of applicable contingencies or cancellation of this agreement, right? Okay, let me talk about that. I'm sorry, number 2. Sorry, guys. Buyer may, within the time specified in paragraph 3L3, request that seller make repairs to take any other action regarding the property, car form, R&R, right? Now it says here, seller has no obligation to agree to or respond to the buyer's request, car form R&R or RRRR. Now, if seller does not agree or does not respond, buyer is not contractually entitled to have the repairs or other requests made, or may only cancel based on contingencies in this agreement, right? So again, the seller has no obligation, right, to respond to the car form R&R, right? And also says this on the request for repairs as well. And it's also here as well, right? Right there. Right. Note, seller has no obligation to respond. Okay. Who has experience, okay, when you're helping your buyer, that you submit a request for repairs and you get no answer? You emailed, you submitted the form, and you don't get an answer from the other party. Raise your hand. Anybody who has done any transactions? Brenda, Bailey, Ramon, Eddie, Ruben, Carlos, Carolina, Yesenia, John. Have you guys experienced that the other party stays quiet? Okay.
A request for repair, yes.
To
That's
you,
what you're saying?
to you, Brenda?
To me, they always.
Well, your question is the experience of filling out one of these?
Yeah, you submitted a request for repairs, right? To the
Yes,
other party, to the other agent, right?
yes.
But you never got an answer on it.
Oh, no, I never had that.
Okay,
I filled it out, but I got a response.
you get a response. Okay, so it happened to me once, and I was really upset. Again, keep in mind, this is before I knew all the contracts left and right. And hey, what the heck? Hey, I sent you a request for repairs. Give me an answer. It never did. And he is pointing back to the paragraph 14. Of course, I read it. Okay, I hold my peace. Again, seller has no obligation to respond, and that's correct. Now, I'm telling you guys, out of courtesy, okay, if your seller does not want to do any repairs, they're not obligated to do any repairs. They're not. If your seller says, you know what, Ruben, you know what, I don't want to see it. I don't want to see it in my face. I told you, the house is sold as it. I'm not doing any repairs. I'm not paying a dime. That's it. Out of courtesy, please send an email back to the other agent and let them know, you know what, my seller does not want to consider any repairs. Doesn't want to sign it. The request for repairs. So take it or leave it. Just out of courtesy. Don't go mute. Don't go silent. Don't ignore it. Be nice. Be kind. But again, now, what about lender required repairs? Is the seller required to do 2 repairs when it comes to lender required repairs?
Are you talking about like if it's FHA or something?
FHA, yes.
If they want the deal, they don't have to. I mean, they could say no,
Right.
but then the deal will be canceled.
Yeah, of course it will. Yeah. So again, all day long, they could say no to nothing. 2-0, okay? So let's start with number 1. Okay, always start number 1. And this goes back to the what? To the purchase agreement. That was dated back on June 23rd, I believe it was. I don't know, right? Between the parties, buyer and seller, right? Their names. And of course, buyers request that seller, right? Prior to the final verification of conditions, repair or take the other specified action for each item listed below or unattached liquidated, right? So now keep in mind that you have very limited lines to write everything here, right? I would say to use number 1, always start with number 1. If you have a laundry list of items that you want the seller to address, to repair, to replace, or to do, see attach addendum number 1 or number 2. Whatever addendum you're at, okay? Always, if you're gonna put a whole laundry list of items, you know, do this, repair that, fix this, replace that, okay? The list goes on. Most likely you want to fit everything here. So I would say see attach addendum number 1 and attach your addendum to your request for repairs. Okay. Now, if your list is less than 5 items, then keep it simple. And of course, you know, replace exhaust, fan, and bathroom. Number 2, repair pool pump, and so on, right? And now we start with numbers, guys, okay? Because let's go to 1A1, A1, A2, and A3. Okay. Now, oh, another thing I forgot to mention about on the request for repairs, besides credits below the price, is termite. Now, keep in mind that termite is not always the wise idea to request it on your request for repairs, because most likely by then it's already too late. If you want the seller, okay, to pay for any termite report and work to be done in the property, I would go ahead and address it on the purchase contract from the beginning, from the get-go. Okay, and that's why I didn't address it when I started this disclosure to you guys. Yes, you could do it on your requested repairs, but maybe depending on your sales price, depending on your terms and conditions, at the end the seller may say, nope, we're not going to do it no more. Too late, too bad, you're lost, right? So again, always negotiate it on the purchase contract from the beginning. Okay, don't wait until you come to this time to request it. Okay, so please do it always on the purchase contract. Okay. So, okay, now if your buyer doesn't want any repairs to get done, right? Then we go to what? Go to letter C, right? Buyer's request seller to credit how much? Well, we want 10,000 for credit back to the buyer. As for now, please, here's a little note, okay? Any credit included in this paragraph in separate form and shall not reduce or supersede any other credit in the agreement unless otherwise agreed. Credits need to be disclosed to the buyer's lender, and total construction credits may be limited pursuant to this agreement. Total credit amount may not be enough to remedy any defect or repairs. Okay. And D, buyer's request. Okay, now keep in mind when it comes to credits, okay, there's only a certain amount a lender will allow to be credited back to the buyer. Okay, the best way to get the most credits, okay, for a buyer is to be used for closing costs. Because when you start asking for 20, for 10,000, for 20, for 50,000, if you are a bank and you see this, how would you see it in your eyes? How would you see this? How would you see when a buyer of yours is asking 50,000 for credits on a purchase?
They don't have the capabilities to make the purchase.
I'm
So
sorry?
they won't be able to make the payments. So they're like risking the loan.
Well, again, no. You keep in mind this credit is being given from the seller to the buyer, Roy.
That they may not need to borrow as much.
Well, yes and no, Brenda. But now let's see it as an investment way type. Okay, if the property you're buying for 500,000, for example, and you're saying that house you're asking for 50,000 in credit, maybe. Yes, Eddie. Go ahead, Eddie. What's up, brother?
Nah, I'm messing around. Go ahead, keep going.
Say that. Come on.
Well, I mean, you got to look at it from the investor point of view that the house might not be worth what it is if you're asking for $50,000 in repairs.
Exactly. Yes. So yes, if you're asking for this chunk of money, right? Most likely the house is not worth 500,000. So if you see it as an investor's eye, well, this is not worth this much money. So that's why you got to be very careful when you're asking for credits back to the buyer, right? And that's why a lender will, wait a minute, and they might send the appraiser to go back to the property to take a second look into the property while you're asking for so much money for repairs and credits, right? Did the appraiser miss anything? Maybe the roof, the foundation, anything else that he probably missed? They hidden note on his report. Is the house broken down? Who knows? Okay, so always gotta be very careful. Okay, and the best way to know how much money or how much to cap on your credits is to contact your lender, the bank, and ask them, how much can we ask for credits or for closing costs? Okay, because now keep in mind, just because you're asking for, let's say 3% for closing costs, right? Out of the sales price, it's going to be 15,000, 1.5, right? But if you're asking for 15,000 for closing costs, and they don't use all those 15,000 for closing costs, the difference is going to go back to the seller. So if the bank only uses 10,000 out of the 15,000 for closing costs, guess what? You're not shortchanging yourself. So now you're 5,000 short, and then it's going to go back to the seller. Does that make sense to you guys? Where am I going with this? Okay, so you got to be very careful. Ask your lender, look, what is the max that my buyer can use for closing costs? Then nothing will go back to the seller. Okay, so you got to be very careful with that. Now, on letter D, right? Now, if you're asking to lower the price from 500,000 to 450, right? Now that could be another trigger, right, Eddie? And now, why is that, Eddie? How can that look better in the eyes of the bank as well?
Same thing.
Same thing, right?
Yeah.
It's not worth that much money, right?
Nope.
So how can we play this around? How can we manipulate the system? I'll tell you guys after the meeting. All right. So don't say
I don't want it on recorded tape.
I'm recording. All right. So continue. So again, so now going back to this, right? We're asking for repairs, right? Credits or so on, right? and you always need to attach what reports, right? So it could be a home inspection report. And it most likely we will use Elite, right? Maybe your term, same thing, your term report. Okay. Foundation and so on, right? You need to attach every single report with your request for repairs, okay? Right there with it, okay? Now, 3, right? FHA or VA, right? Buyer's FHA or VA lender require specified actions in the appraisal or other lender documentation if checked, right? Attached. Now, buyer's FHA or VA requires the following items to be repaired. Buyer's request for the buyer's request that seller repairs the following items, and seller or buyer shall pay for the such repairs, right? But again, the seller is not entitled or doesn't need to repair, right? Again, they don't have to repair for any lender request repairs, right? So most likely the buyer will have to pay for those items, right? Now, when it comes to this, right? Now keep in mind, just like Brenda said, right? Well, if they don't do those repairs, most likely they will have a dead deal, right? Now, what are most likely the items an appraisal will see on an FHA purchase? Broken windows, broken doors, missing
Broken fences,
I'm sorry, Brenda?
broken, messed up fences.
Misses, yeah, fences, right? Missing screens on windows, right? Maybe your maybe the house actually has security bars and doesn't have self-relief mechanisms. Maybe the pool doesn't have a pool barrier, right? For children or adults swimming and diving and going to the pool and not know how to swim, right? Those can be factors why an FHA appraiser will note those items to get repaired or to get done prior to the close of escrow. Okay. Now, keep in mind, a home must be at least about 80 to 85% habitable. In other words, in living conditions for FHA to approve that transaction, that home. So you can have missing doors, no broken windows, fences, screens, and so on like that. Okay, and good standing, right? So carpet, tiles, no broken, nothing like that. Okay, everything has to be working in good conditions. Okay, now keep in mind that this request for repairs will also has an expiration as well, right? Buyer's purpose of this request for repairs shall be deemed revoked, right, unless by 5 p.m. on which day? On the 3rd day. It is signed by buyer by 6 p.m. a.m. p.m. or on different date, right? Or if buyer withdraws the request for repairs anytime prior to seller's acceptance by communication, withdraw to sellers or seller's agent. Right now, the buyer will sign right here, right? That he has requested repairs, credits, or to lower the price. Now, second part is for the seller to select only one. Okay, this is the response for the seller on the request for repairs. Okay, now the seller either agrees for the buyer's request, or number 2, seller partial agreement. Seller agrees to all buyer's requests except, right? So everything except, maybe they don't want to do the the pool pump. Maybe they don't want to give a credit. Maybe they don't want to lower the price, right? So whatever that is, it's going to be partial agreement, right? Or he says, you know what? No. I'm going to respond on my own request for repairs on the seller's response. And that's be card form RNR, right? Or 4, buyer's requests are not incorporated into this agreement. Seller's response for the buyer's request on the attached amendment or existing agreement, card form AEA, right? Or number 5, seller does not agree to any buyer's request. So the seller has 5 options: either to accept, partial, response, make a different request, right? Or not response or doesn't agree to the response, right? They sign here. Now, depending on the seller's response from 1 through 5, right? Then the buyer will have to either sign here at the bottom, right? But again, buyer's response to the seller's partial agreement only. Do not sign until after seller's response, the above, right? So this is only for partial agreement, right? Buyer accepts seller's partial agreement, or buyer does not accept seller's partial agreement. Buyers withdraw request for repairs number 1 on top, and then makes a new request and attach request for repairs number 2 right here, and then the buyer will sign here. And this is only for the partial agreement when the seller has what? Selected number 2 right here, folks. Okay. If the seller has 3, 4, and 5, no need to sign here. Okay. If the seller accepts all the requests, no need to sign here as well. Okay. So this part only is when the buyer seller has only done partial agreement. Okay. So if the seller says, you know what, I'm going to go back and give you my own response on my request for repairs, then we open card form R, R, and R. Okay, and let's go back to the seller's response on R, R, and R, and R, right? Seller's response to the buyer's reply to request for repairs number 1. Okay. Now keep in mind, when it comes to the request for repairs and response to the buyer's reply, they have to go on their own sequence. Okay. It doesn't go 1 and then 2 for the response. Okay. Each one go on their own sequence. 1 and 1. Buyer's request number 1, seller's response number 1, and so on and so on and so on. Okay. So now, in accordance with the terms and conditions to the request for repairs, number 1, right, which was dated today again, right, the 28th, and the property known at, right, and the buyer's name and sellers, right. Seller's response to the buyer's request. Seller agreed if check all that apply, right. 1, 2, all. Buyer's request on request number 1, right here, or to credit, right, at close of escrow to credit to buyer, or to modify the purchase price. The revised price shall be now what, right? So you could select more than 1 or other, right? But most likely, sellers will do number A. To all, buyer's request accept, right? Now they have their own laundry list, right? We'll see attach addendum. Number what? Number 2. Because they already did the buyer did number 1. Now you do number 2. Okay, and now when it comes to addendums, those go in the numerical sequence. Okay, so you got to keep track on which sequence you're at. Okay, to go to the next number. Okay, so if there's already a number 1, then it will be number 2 and number 3 and 4 and so on. Okay, so now you're gonna do your own addendum and you're gonna do your own laundry list of which items you want to fix and not fix. So I'm doing everything except, and then I see attach addendum and the items they don't want to repair or replace. Okay. But then again, here on number 2, right? Now you're also asking, right, for the buyer to remove what? The applicable contingencies, right? Seller's conditions as well. Seller's agreement only applies if buyers removes the investigation contingency paragraph 3L3 and 8C, except for the following. No, leave it alone. Buyer removes those contingencies, right, identified on the signed contingency removal card form CC. Okay, now you also want to remove the request for repairs, right? So with this, okay, if the seller is gonna respond, I would definitely attach my hard form CR, my contingency removal with this. Because before the seller does any repairs, right, you want the buyer to remove their contingency of the actual investigation rights, or maybe other contingencies as well. Because it wouldn't be fair for the seller to comply for the buyer's demands when it comes to repairs, and at the end, the buyer decides to cancel. Again, let me repeat myself. It wouldn't be fair for the seller to comply, to replace, repair, to lower the price, or to give a credit back to the buyer when the buyer has not removed all their contingencies in writing, and the seller has invested money onto those repairs, and then the buyer says, you know what, Megan's Law, we want to cancel. But wait a minute, I thought we had an agreement. I thought you wanted the property, and that's why I went out on my own way to make those repairs for you, because you wanted the property. Yeah, but you know what? We found there was Megan's Law, there was a sex offender in the property, which is your mind. We want to cancel. So before the seller makes any repairs or anything else, please make sure to always submit the contingency removal and push the buyer to remove all contingencies in writing before the seller goes and spends a dime for repairs. Does that make sense? Yes? We're good on that? Good, okay. The sign right here. And then if we continue with this, now at the bottom section, right, either the buyer's gonna either accept and respond to and agree to the seller's conditions from the top, or buyer accepts seller response with the following modifications, okay, to that addendum number 1, right? Or buyer withdraws the request number 1 and makes a new request and attach request number 2 right there. Oh, whoa, what up here? Okay. Okay, so number 1 right there. Select it. So we went from 1, and now when I select our number 2, it's a new request for repairs. Okay. Okay, and then again, the bottom last portion, it says seller's agreement. Seller agrees to the buyer's modification. Now, this is only when the seller has modified, okay, on number 2 right there. Okay, then the seller will either agrees to the buyer's modification, or seller does not agree to the buyer's modification and may submit a new request for repairs. Okay, so now keep in mind that the request for repairs and the seller's response to the request for repairs, right? This can go on forever. And I have seen it up to 4 different requests for repairs until they have agreed either to repair, to lower the price, or to give a credit back. So this can be ongoing, recurring repairs, request for repairs, okay? So do not give up. Always continue to negotiate until either party has given in to the other party, or vice versa. Okay, or if the seller doesn't want to respond, then again leave it alone. Okay, but again, keep in mind that once the seller has initiated the response, they need to finish the response. Okay, the only time the seller doesn't have the title or doesn't have the responsibility to respond is when you get the first request for repairs from the buyer. All right, good. So any questions on the request for repairs and the seller's response for the buyer's reply to the request for repairs? Any questions on that? Got it covered?
So
good?
until, I have one question. So until the agreement, is reached, you don't start on any repairs at all
At all.
until request number 5 or 6 is done.
Is that and after the buyer has removed all the contingencies, Roy?
Okay.
Yes. So once everything, all the agreements has been reached, like you're saying, right?
Yeah.
And the buyer has removed their contingencies in writing, okay? We're talking about all of them, not just partial, all of them. Because again, you don't want to give the chance to the buyer to cancel for the loan approval, the appraisal, or anything else they might see, they might find on the property. So make sure all of it has been removed, and then now you can go ahead and start, because then now if the buyer does default and cancels, hey, guess what? I'm taking your money, and with the money that I'm taking, I'm gonna, at least for the losses that I expended, that I spend on the repairs, I'm taking the money to use for my repairs. All right. So we're good on that, right? Okay. Another disclosure, I'm gonna go pretty fast. It's one that you guys should always be on the lookout, and that's a statewide advisory, card form Spsa. Okay, because many of you guys, like myself in the past, we try to wear different hats. Okay, we try to be plumbers, contractors. Amanda says she's a plumber, an attorney, a CPA. What else? Inspector, and the list goes on. Okay. So real fast, this is card form Fpsa, statewide buyer and seller advisory. This form does not replace local condition disclosures. Additional advisories or disclosures may be attached. Card form Spsa. Okay. So pretty much, and to paraphrase this form, it gives the buyers and sellers the duty to satisfy themselves when it comes to inspections, investigations, or anything that is to be done in the property. Okay, that's what it is. Okay, but again, it also gives us our duties. Okay, as brokers, what we could do and what we cannot do in a transaction. Okay, so even though you have a seller, okay, they're asking you to do this or to do that, it says here, brokers' rights and duties. Okay, so this is for you guys to understand. Okay, so brokers do not have expertise in all areas and matters affecting the property and your evaluation of it. For most sales of residential properties with no more than 4 units, okay, brokers have a duty to make a reasonably competent and visual inspection and accessible areas of the property and disclose to any material facts or defects that inspection reveals. Right? Again, defects. Okay, not describing the property. Again, our job is not to, when it comes to the AVID, we're not here to describe the property. We're not here to do inventory control. Okay, so please do not see that, okay, well, it's missing tile floorings, nice, beautiful landscaping, hardwood floors, recessed lighting, none of that. Do not describe the property. Okay, we're looking for defects, scratches, markings, holes, stains. That's it, right? Many defects.
Hey, Freddy,
Yes, Ruben.
got a question. So, for like any illegal stuff that is like in the property, how we protect against anything like that? I mean, there is like any form or anywhere on the contract where it says that we are not responsible to make the investigations on the city if there is anything illegal on this property?
Okay, Ruben, let me ask you, Ruben, how did you become aware there was something illegal or something wrong with the property?
Well, I mean, sometimes you can like right away see how, the property, I mean, how low it is, like the ceiling and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I mean, just yourself, you're not going to tell that to your clients, but I mean, you kind of know.
Okay.
But I mean, my question is, there is like any form or anything, just making sure that buyers, they need to do their own investigations and that they don't come out later on to tell you, hey, you never told me about this or you never told me about that.
Okay. So let me go back to your question. Okay. So of course, yeah, by human nature, we tend to see maybe a lower ceiling, right? Maybe the room is not the best way because it doesn't look compared to the homes you have seen out there. Now, when your eyes are going beyond your expertise, Ruben, right? Now you're acting like a contractor, like an inspector. Now you're wearing a different hat instead of an actual realtor that you are. Okay, and that's why it says here, right? We don't have expertise on other areas affecting the property on your evaluation of it. And that's what it is. So again, that's why there's disclosures, right? Like this Fpsa for the buyer to do their own what? Their own investigations and check the property. Now, you could suggest, encourage, not advise, encourage, but again, hey, you know what? This doesn't look right, but I would definitely encourage you to recommend you to hire an inspector or a contractor to come see the property. Now, if you want to, there's no, again, there's disclosures, which is the Spsa, it relates back to that, right? Now, if you want to wash your hands like piloto, like pilot, right? You can always do an addendum, you know, and address it there, you know, actually, but I wouldn't enforce that because now you're acting like a contractor. Unless you have something that someone told you, like the seller told you, hey, Ruben, you know, actually, just to let you know, the little guest room or the family room, it was done without permits. Then, Ruben, you could say, you know, actually, you know, per seller, family room is not permitted. Buyer and seller, you know, the parties to hereby to be known that the family room is not permitted. That's it.
Yeah, but but my question is like, how will you approach or how you can have anything like sign or any kind of form where it's like, okay, I told you or I mentioned to you to go to the city and get your own inspections about this property, about all your permits, because you know how it is, especially when you work with somebody that they don't read the contract or they don't even speak English at all,
Right.
and that they are expecting you to explain,
Right.
all this information.
Okay.
So if you don't do that, because you're supposed to be the person that are helping them.
Right.
So basically, if you don't kind of like be on top of it and tell them, exactly what to do, and then they feel like you are not like really there for them.
Right.
So later on in the future, I have an issue, and that's why I'm telling you this.
Okay. Thank
So later on, 2-3 years later, they probably have some kind of issues with the city, or the city show up and they tell them, hey, this is not legal, whatever. And then guess who they're gonna go to? They're gonna be calling you and
Right.
asking you or telling you that you never did anything to help them, because they find the city finds something illegal on the property, and then now they are jumping on you, telling you, hey, you never told me about this, and you're supposed to be the person helping me. You know what I mean?
Yes, I do.
So how do you approach, or how do you avoid to have these kind of issues in the future?
We would be liable for something like that, Freddy, we're not aware of it. We're not contractors. We don't have any certifications on zoning and planning. How would we be liable for that? If maybe that might be the first finger to point, because he would be the agent representing them, but could we even be liable for that if we didn't know by the mouth of the seller?
We cannot be liable for something that we don't know. We can't. And again, we're not contractors. Now, Ruben, if you feel like you might want to disclose something that you might know or you may become aware, right? You could draw an addendum and disclose to the parties, look, actually, seller and buyer to verify with the city for any legal additions that the house might have. Right? But again, I'm not stipulating that it does have it, again, that it may have in the property. Now, when it comes to translating or to interpret this into English into Spanish, now that's not our job as well. Because given the way that we interpret or translate from English to Spanish, it might be different from other people might interpret that, right? So it's best to have your own family member or someone else, or hire a professional interpreter, right? So they could translate from English to Spanish. Now, I wouldn't say you, Ruben, yourself, even though, yes, you're the professional, you're the realtor and their agent helping your buyer or seller, right? But again, if they don't comprehend or understand the language, then they can always go to an attorney of their own choosing, right? And it says it on the contract, and explain to them what they're signing and what they're buying.
Freddy,
Yes, Ramon.
Aren't those issues addressed right here in that paragraph that you have in front of you where it said broker rights and duties?
Yes, exactly. And so, yeah,
So if they're addressed there, that means it releases you from any
liability.
any professional advice that you are not obligated to give, right? I
Yeah.
mean, whatever it says about broker rights and duties, it applies to you because you are an agent of the broker.
Exactly. Right. And again, now if you and it says here, right, if you give a referral to another professional, right, brokers do not guarantee that the person's performance. You may select any professional of your own choosing. Now, if a broker gives a report or other documents, unless otherwise specified, it is possible that different reports provided to you contain conflicting information. Broker has not and will not verify otherwise investigate the information contained herein, right? Therein. Any written agreement between the broker and either buyer or seller or both establishes the right and responsibility to those parties. So this will limit us, right, from any liability. Now, we cannot get liable for something that we don't know, right? And this Spsa is very practical because again, it goes in really into detail, Ruben and Ramon, right? What a buyer can do when it comes to investigating the property, and that's why they have the rights to investigate the property. Now, if they feel that the ceiling is too low or the bench is too kind of small or big, or maybe it doesn't add up, right? Then hey, hire a contractor, right? Now you could encourage to hire a contractor, Ruben. Now, if they say no, right, then you could do a waiver, a BIW, if they refuse to hire a contractor of their own choosing, right? And this goes through every single thing what to look for. Again, inspections right here, right? So buyer and seller are advised to. The buyer has the right to obtain various inspections of property under most residential purchase agreements. Buyers are advised to have a property inspected by a professional property inspection service within a buyer's inspection contingency period. A licensed building contractor or other professional may perform the services, right? The inspection journey does not look behind walls or under carpets or take equipment apart. Certain items on the property may such chimneys and spark arresters, plumbing, heating, air conditioning, electrical wiring, pools, and spa, septic systems, wall, roof, foundations, and structural items may need to be inspected by other professionals, such as chimneys, sweeps, plumbers, electricians, pools, and spa services, septic and other well companies, or roofers, right? So again, there's different professionals based on that trade, on that item. A general physical inspection typically will not test for mold, wood, destroying pests, lead-based paint, radon, asbestos, or other environmental hazards, geologic conditions, age, remaining useful life, or other water tightness or roof cracks, leaks, or operational problems associated with the pool or spa, or connections of the property to a sewer system. If a buyer wants further information or any other aspects of the property, broker recommends, right, that buyer may have a discussion with a professional property inspector, and the buyer to hire an appropriate professional for that area of concern to the buyer. Brokers do not verify results or any inspections or guarantee the performance of any such inspector or service. Any election by buyer to waive the rights to the physical inspection of the property or to rely on somebody other than the appropriate professional is against the advice of the brokers. Not all inspections are licensed, and licenses are not available for our types of inspection activities. And again, it says here, what? Brokers do not have expertise on this area. So hopefully that will answer your question, Romana, on this. Because again, you definitely want to push them and recommend them, right, to hire the typical inspector, plumber, roofer, pool guy, whatever that is, right? But again,
Question. Isn't it if after an inspection, a property is found not to be a city code or any code, a building code, and the buyer requests the repairs to be done. Is that in any case in which the seller has to do those repairs?
No. 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 Again, keep in mind that when you okay, let's say for example in the city of Southgate, right? The city of Southgate actually has a city pre-sale inspection report, when the city will send their own inspector, right, to inspect the property for any non-permits, not compliance, or maybe something was done illegally. Now, the seller has the actual the choice either to comply with the city, get permits, address those issues that are not in compliance, or you know what, pass on that responsibility to the new homeowner, and this is the buyer. You know what, Mr. Buyer, here's what the city has to say about my property. Here's a report, just to let you know, I made a room without permits, I'm not in compliance, and this and that and everything else. Now you as a new homeowner will have to either comply and get permits and address those issues once you're a new homeowner, right? Now, the buyer has a choice either to accept those conditions or to walk away from that transaction.
Well, that's the question, right? That's the question. Is it can the buyer then walk away with his deposits, his or her deposit?
Because that was
if the seller does not agree to do the repairs that are to get the property up to code.
exactly, yeah. Because again, that's part of your investigations, Ramon. Again, that's part of your investigations on the property, right? You inspected the property and you were aware through the seller, to the city, right, that this is wrong and it's not to code, and the buyer doesn't feel satisfied or happy about it. You know what? Well, because you're not doing those repairs, or you're not going to be compliant before the close of escrow, then I'm going to cancel based on those reasons.
Thank
So
you.
yes, Ramon. So that's your question, your answer, my friend, and very good question, very good answer, brother. Any question? Okay. So again, it goes back again on square footage, on the lot size, boundaries again, and almost every single sentence at the bottom it says what? Brokers do not have expertise on this area. So it's not our job to go to the city to check for permits, to check for square footage, for boundaries, the lot size, none of that. For insurances, again, when it comes to that, we don't have expertise. Again, see, all the areas do not have expertise, none of that. Property use of ownership, building permits, zoning, code compliance, and again, what? Brokers do not have expertise, right? So we don't have, again, our job is not go to the city and be behind the line waiting to get called on to get permits on the property. No, none of that. Okay. Same thing goes with insurance, title insurance, foreclosure. Again, brokers do not have expertise in this area. Land lease. So I want to sure I make my point across to you guys. I know we want to help our people, right? But at the end of the day, it's up to them to do their own investigations, inspections, their own approval, the lenders of their own choosing, appraisal, and so on and so on. Okay. So when it comes to again, go back to you, Ruben. If they don't understand the language or they cannot read, then have somebody else to help them understand the contract.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, brother. Okay. And if you have any problems, come see me after the meeting, brother. We'll talk more about it. Okay. So any questions on the Spsa, folks? No? Okay, so I'm gonna stop real fast. I'm gonna go to any Q&A, any forums, anything, any concerns, any questions you guys have, any doubts? Any other remarks? Okay. Now, also for the sake of your transactions, okay, please always wait. If you're helping your buyer, always wait to get all your disclosures, okay, from the seller. Always wait, okay? Even though sometimes the time is of the essence and there's pressure behind you that you have 7 days to remove all contingencies or here and there, or 10 days, always wait to get all your disclosures, okay? I had an experience that happened to me when I was pretty much new to the business. They put a deadline to me that we had to remove contingencies within a time frame, and I acted upon myself to order the home inspection and the appraisal to meet the deadline, right? Without first getting the disclosure to the seller. Of course, on the second day after the acceptance, I didn't get disclosures. I moved forward. I told my buyer, hey, we got to move forward with this, otherwise they're going to cancel you. Again, not knowing the whole real estate transaction and disclosures. We ordered the inspection and the appraisal at the same time, and without knowing, when I got the disclosures after the next day, somebody had died on the property. Okay, somebody died on the property, and guess what happened? My buyers were not happy with that because superstition, or because they have their own beliefs. They decided to cancel that transaction on me. They canceled, and they were upset at me because they didn't know of this, and because they canceled, I had to pay up for the appraisal and the home inspection, and at the end, I lost the buyer in a transaction. So please, even though they put in pressure, if they put in pressure, then you put pressure back. Hey, you want to remove this? Then here's my notice to perform, or provide me reports, disclosures, and everything else for my buyer to get satisfied before we move forward with the home inspection and appraisal and everything else. Okay, so please take one step at a time, one day at a time as well. Okay, and yeah, sometimes 10 days might be short because time does flies and goes fast on your transaction. But again, you cannot move forward without getting disclosure reports and everything from the seller side. So please act diligently on everything else. Okay. Anything else? Comments? We're good? We got it covered? So you guys know what's up, right? Brenda, Roy, Naomi, Ruben, Jorge, Bailey, Carolina, Karina, Carlos, Ramon, Alianis, Anna, Yesenia, Star.
All good, man. Thank you.
All right, folks. Well, great training. Tomorrow, if you're in Downey agent, we have our in-house, in-person office meeting. Okay, don't forget that. And next Tuesday, we will not have a training since we have 4th of July weekend, and most of you guys to take off for long weekends. So, but we will have a Southgate office meeting on Wednesday, but we want to have a Tuesday meeting for next July 5th. Okay, so
30,
enjoy your weekend with the family. Be safe. Don't spend too much money on fireworks. I really go and eat it. Some seafood, mariscos, lobster. I don't know, whatever you guys like. Okay, steak and lobster. Enjoy it. So thank you very much. Oh, do not leave yet. Do not leave.
Thank you, Freddie.
Hold on, Brenda.
Thank you, Freddy.